You're all set.
Thank you, Maria. All right. Good evening, folks. It is Gloucester. It is a glorious sunny day, and we are here to give you an update on the East Gloucester Veterans Memorial School Building Project. We're going to wait for a few more people to enter the room. People are entering right now. We can see up to about 16 attendees, which is fantastic. Just so folks know, we reached out to well over 100 neighbors by snail mail, by real like US mail, to make sure they were aware of this, and have also posted it on social media and our building project website. And I think we're ready to go. So I'm Ben Lummis. I'm the superintendent of schools, and we are really, really happy to talk to folks from the Veterans Memorial neighborhood tonight and give you an opportunity to learn more about the school and the great opportunity for the students in Gloucester, especially the students who live in the downtown area and around the downtown area, and also in East Gloucester. And also the opportunity it affords the whole community and families in the neighborhood. And we're pretty excited that this is going forward. It's been a long road to get here, and we still have a long way to go. But we've got a great team. So I want to start by having the team introduce themselves. So the folks that are here tonight are a combination of Gloucester Public School leaders and members of our project team, which includes the designers from Dorn Whittier, the folks from our construction manager, that's W.T. Rich and Company, and then also our project manager, which is CWRE Heary. And I will let folks go first. Just introduce yourself. Jonathan, Rich, if you can introduce your team or have your team introduce themselves, that'd be great.
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is John Rich. I'm the CEO of W.T. Rich Company, and I'm involved as the project executive for the East Gloucester Veterans Memorial School. I'm very happy to be here this evening. I'll let Brian go first, and then Alex to introduce themselves.
I'm Brian Parody, project manager. Been heavily involved in the pre-construction activities to date, so looking forward to talking to you tonight.
I'm Alex Corbett, project manager for the project. I've also been involved with Brian and John getting the project off the ground.
Great. And then how about our designers from...
Oh, sorry, we had one more, Phil Muller. Sorry, Phil, I didn't see you up there in the corner.
That's okay. Phil Muller, W.T. Rich, assistant project manager.
And Phil and I are both Gloucester residents. 50% of our team this evening.
That's great. That's nice to have local folks working on a fantastic local project. How about our designers, folks from Dorn Whittier, Michelle and Brad?
So I'm Brad Dorr. I'm the principal with Dorn Whittier.
And I'm Michelle Rogers. I'm the project manager for Dorn Whittier.
And then last but certainly not least, the folks from CBRE Heary.
Brian,
Good evening.
go ahead, Brian.
Dennis.
I'm Dennis Pacitti with CBRE. My role in the project is on-site owner's rep, project manager, on-site owner's rep. So I'll be on the project for the duration on the site.
Great. Good to see Dennis.
And I'm Brian Ramotka. I'm handling the early stages of the project during the design phases, and then also overseeing during construction as well, but not on site.
Great.
It's nice to talk to all of you.
Great. And then last and most important from my point of view is our staff. So first of all, school committee member, Kathy, could you introduce yourself, please? And then Amy and Matt.
Kathy Clancy, I'm on the school committee and I serve on the school building committee as well.
Great. Amy?
I'm Amy Pasquarello. I'm the principal of East Gloucester Elementary School.
I'm Matt Fusco. I'm the principal of the Veterans Memorial Elementary School.
Great. Excellent, folks. Thank you so much for being here. All right, so let me jump in. I'm going to give folks an update on just sort of where we are on the project and sort of a very brief overview, and then we'll get in. So I need to share my screen here. Give me a moment, please. Okay. Whoa, hold on. not used to PowerPoint anymore.
Could Brian share his?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Brian, you're sharing. Thank goodness. Sorry. Oh my gosh, sorry.
Yep, I was gonna say I got it. All
Good, you do
right.
it. You do it.
Let's see. Advanced out. Who can share? Only hosts.
Brian, you should be able to share. You see
All
share
right.
screen?
Yep, I got it.
Sorry, folks. There's a couple of technical difficulties, but we'll get it together.
Slideshow, and let's start it up. Can you guys see that?
No.
Not yet.
Just let me go back here then. I'll just go the old-fashioned way then, I guess. Screen one. Share. How about now?
Yes.
Not
but
great.
We're seeing the presenter view as opposed to the.
One more time then.
Maybe if you uncheck use presenter view. Maybe if you uncheck you see user.
Right, if you go present, there's a way to say switch the swap the screens.
Wait, no, don't do that.
Okay.
And then
Oops. Swap the screens, you're saying?
if you hit present,
Oh,
I think at this point, Brian, if you just run the video, you'd be fine.
you hit present. Yeah,
then if you go to display settings, I think you can say like
that's right.
swap presenter. There you go.
There
How's
you
that?
go. There you go.
There we go. Sorry
Great.
about that.
Good
That's
work,
all
Brian.
right.
Good work, Brian.
All right, so folks, let's get going. So we'll talk about quickly the plan for tonight. So we'll do a quick design overview, and then WT Rich, our construction manager, will explain their role. Then they'll go. The real priority focus on tonight's presentation is first to get you familiar with the building and just the great improvements that'll be for the school children and our staff. And then really, because this is focused on the neighborhood, WT Rich will talk about what will happen in the neighborhood, the timing of it, the safety, logistics, mitigation, how it's going to operate during construction, and also then communication and how we will communicate with the neighborhood to make sure the folks know what's up and coming. And then when you have questions or concerns, how you can communicate with the project team. So so go ahead, Brian. So first of all, we want to make sure everyone understands just the big picture timeline. The city has been at this and the schools have been at this for quite some time. 2016 is when we initially launched the project. And that was by starting to work or applying to work with the Massachusetts School Building Authority. We were accepted to work with them in 2017. And since then, we've been through various phases. So site selection, which happened, looking at many sites across the city. Feasibility phase, which is an early design phase. Schematic design phase, which is where the design is the sort of the nature of the building and the size and scope and layout of the building is defined fully. And that allowed us to both get a very good estimate, very good project cost estimate, set the funding level for the project, and then pursue funding from both the Mass School Building Authority and also the loan order from the city and from that the voters supported to fund the building in November of this past year. And so with the city council's approval, the school committee's approval, the Mass School Building Authority's approval, and then the funders and the voters' approval, that paved the way for moving forward ahead with the project into where we are now. There have been many, many open and public meetings all along the way. So even if you're just tuning in now, because you live close by, please know that there've already been 65 open and public meetings since we began the process on many, many subjects all along the way. Brian, go next slide. So the detailed timeline that we're into right now started in November after the citywide vote to support the project. You can see now through June, we're getting ready. That's preparing swing space. That's ultimately moving out of Veterans Memorial. That's getting the permitting, the permitting process. Starting in July, the summer really, was site preparation And then into the fall really is when demolition starts. We'll talk about that timeline a little bit more in depth a little bit later tonight. And then the major construction happens from April to, the sort of late or winter, this winter, and then on to all the way to June 2023. So it takes about essentially a full 2 years to bring down the old building and put up the new building. And then we are aiming for a fall 2023 opening of the new building there on Webster Street. After that, the city will be working on taking down the East Gloucester School and then restoring that to open space. That design of the open space is yet to happen. Will happen in advance of that. The Public Works will lead that process with the City Council. The schools will only be a supporter of that process. We won't be running that process. Okay, Brian. Great. So Amy and Matt will give us the design update, telling you all about the advantages and great, look and feel of the new building. Go ahead, Matt and Amy. Go ahead, Brian.
So some of the many improvements of the new building over the Veterans and East Gloucester, the classroom sizes will be appropriate size for classrooms. Right now we have, at East Gloucester, we have one really large classroom and the others are significantly smaller than what is recommended. We will also have dedicated special education spaces and classrooms that are accessible right near the classroom. So they're not kind of off in another part of the building. We will have dedicated nurse and health office, guidance and counseling support. Currently at East Gloucester, my school psychologist and adjustment counselor share an office, which leads to concerns for privacy and being able to service kids. So they are very excited to have their own space to really implement the support that they need to do. The gymnasium and the cafeterias will be separate. One of the things that is a wonderful part of that is right now, if the gym and the cafeteria share a space at both Veterans and East Gloucester, so you cannot have gym class when lunch is going on. So it substantially limits our scheduling. So separating those two spaces will be a tremendous asset to this program we can offer our students. Also, I currently have both music and art on a cart. So the art teacher and music teacher have a cart that they wheel from room to room to do their classes. In this new beautiful building, they will have their own space where their artwork will be displayed, where they can practice, choral performances or their recorders and ukuleles, and it will be an appropriate space for them to perform. We also will have extended learning spaces, one on each of the 3 floors, to be shared between 2 different grade levels. And this is a wonderful space for breakout rooms, for project-based learning, STEM activities. It will be a wonderful opportunity for the learning to extend beyond the classroom. And the next slide, Matt, I think you're up.
Thank you, Amy. We're really excited about this playground structures, the 2 playground areas that we're going to have at the new school, which will be available to families that live in the community. As you can see, we're going to have an expanded playground and play structures that are going to offer just a lot of variety for children, for activities, for movement, not just swings and slides. It's going to be a lot of very different activities for kids to play and to learn. We're going to have 2 playgrounds. One is going to be a playground for kindergarten and first graders, which will be developmentally appropriate. And what you're looking at here is the back side of the building, which will have playgrounds areas for grades 2 through 5. We are really excited about having on-site student pickup and drop-off. And those of you that live in the neighborhood know how we do our pickup and drop off. And this will be all on site. So that'll get cars off the roadways. And of course, another thing I'm very excited about is the dedicated bus loop, which will take the buses off of the streets. Right now they park on the side of the streets, which narrows the road a bit. So all the buses will be able to pull into a dedicated bus loop. full access emergency loop will be going around the entire building. We've been working closely with the fire department and police department to make sure that there's a full emergency access loop around the building. The building's going to have on-site parking for staff and visitors. And this area here, you can see, can be closed off and would allow for overflow parking for special events as well. Next slide. All right, I get to talk about the exterior design progress and just talk about some of the work that the Exterior Design Committee has been doing. As you can see, we've decided on a color scheme for the colored panels on the front. We've also chosen what the brick is going to look like. It's a water-struck brick, has kind of an old feel to it that kind of mirrors some of the buildings in the downtown area. Really excited about. We've also been talking about the setup of the playground area. We've been looking at types of turf, what the movable gates are going to look like and the design on those. You can see some timbers along the front of the building. We're still kind of looking at that and thinking about ways we're going to marry what those timbers look like with what is inside the building. And of course, we're always looking at security options, and that's a big part of the work that we're doing as well. Next slide. So now to talk about this front entryway and the welcome area will be Michelle Rogers from Doran Whittier.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was speaking. So this is a really exciting space for us to begin to welcome the students. This area is wide enough and open enough for students to arrive, to gather. It provides an opportunity for students to come outside during the day as well. So we have areas for outdoor classrooms and outdoor seating. Activities such as our classrooms can happen out here within this space. It's protected within that sort of hugging area where the area of the grade comes down into this space, and it provides a very welcoming space and entry into the main portion of the building from the student drop-off space.
Do I have this one, Ben? All right, I'll take it. As you can see, you're looking down at bird's eye view of the building. The area to your left, the long part of the building, that's where the classrooms are going to be. You're going to have 4 classrooms on one end, 4 classrooms on the other end, K1 on the first floor, 2nd and 3rd on the 2nd floor, 4th and 5th on the 3rd floor. And then it moves over to the sort of art room, gymnasium, and that's over on the right area right there. Thank you for the pointing. Yes. And off to Amy.
So this is a typical classroom. If you just look at it, it's basic 4 walls, but if you look a little deeper, you notice that the cubbies are in the classroom, which makes it easier for teachers to keep track of students when they're going to their backpack and rather than going out to the hallway. It will have state-of-the-art technology available to them. There's built-in seating for reading in the classroom along the back windows. If you look to the right, where there's a boy writing on the walls, that is a whiteboard where student work can happen, but also it's a collapsible wall. So you can join this classroom and the one next to it for larger projects or community activities in the grade level. And towards the front on the right, you see a window. In that window leads to a breakout room where special education services can happen, small group work can happen, project-based learning can happen. So this classroom offers a lot of flexible learning opportunities for students. And you can go to the next slide. And I hope you noticed, because I should have said it before the next slide, but the back had a color so that it matches to the grade level that it's in. And you'll see that the yellow continues on the floor here. So it kind of anchors you in the building. You'll know what floor you're in. This is an example of an extended learning space on one of the floors. This would be available to between 2 grade levels. It's a very flexible space where there's also technology. There's a sink, so you can do science experiments and STEM activities in there. They could display student work. We could have community, for example, we could have a community resource officer or ACE come in and do a presentation and have the whole grade level come to one spot. If you look at the walls on in the hallway, you can see the blue and white tile and gray. It's to mimic a wave. So there's a lot of ocean themes and the odd to the nautical history of Gloucester throughout the building. You also see a wave in the soffit on the ceiling. That curved wave kind of reminds us of the ocean, and on the floor, the line tiles as well. You even have a porthole window with the extra seating is a nod, also nod to the nautical history of Gloucester. And you can go to the next slide. So this is a combined space. It is the gymnasium and it's also the stage. This stage will be a raised stage. It's about 30 inches off of the ground, so it's a little higher than what they have at West Parish. You can access the stage from the back and it goes directly to the music room. So for performances, students can kind of do their backstage in the music room and come right out onto stage. This room will also be able to, you can close off the stage for if you wanted to have a quiet yoga space or something for classrooms. And then the gymnasium part, Mr. Fusco is going to talk to us a little bit about that area.
The gymnasium is really going to be a signature part of this building and really one that will tie in the entire community to what's going on at this beautiful new school. So this is going to be not only our gymnasium, but it'll also be the community's gymnasium with the regulation size court. We're going to have some flexible seating, so there will be places you don't see them, but we're going to have some foldable bleachers. So people will be able to watch their children or friends play in basketball games and other activities. The color scheme is picking up what's on the front of the building, and the superintendent really loves those mats, and so I think those will be staying if he has his way. So it's really going to be a really beautiful place.
Thank you, Matt and Amy. I just want to just acknowledge and appreciate what a significant improvement that this facility will be over the current veterans and East Gloucester schools. Those have been fantastic schools for literally 60 plus years. They've served the community very, very well. And yet they're very much outdated and also really just faltering badly. But as I hope folks in the neighborhood, see that this school building will have, whether it's the playgrounds outside, which are extensive, and also the 2 playgrounds and good for different age children, whether it's the the ability to get all the parking and all the arrival and dismissal on site and off of Webster Street, that'll be a big help. Or if it's this space, the gym and performance stage, where community groups can use that for dance recitals, for athletic leagues, classes, just a real fantastic community use facility that'll benefit obviously your students, families, our teachers, and of course the community at large. So really great to have that sort of facility right there in downtown. So Brian, you can go next, and we're going to get into the meat of the presentation, which is about helping neighbors understand just how construction will work, and how you can we'll be communicating with you, how we make sure that the site is safe. And Jonathan Rich is going to head us off on that. I will say, I forgot to say earlier, we will have time for questions and answers at the end of the presentation, which after we finish the slide presentation, then we'll have time for Q&A for anybody who wants to ask a question. Go ahead, Jonathan. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Ben. Good evening, everyone. So I just want to say briefly, just introduce WT Rich Company. So we are the construction manager on the project, and that's exactly what it sounds like. We're going to be responsible for managing everything within the site limits with regards to building the new school. But we have been involved since last June, and the role of construction manager during pre-construction is to do cost estimates, design reviews, and a lot of project planning, and that's what we've been doing. So to just tell you a little bit about who we are and what we do. So WT Rich Company really is pretty focused and specialized construction manager. We do 100% Massachusetts public construction work. And there's two delivery methods for building construction. And the one that we're using on this project is called Chapter 149A, CM at risk. And that's the vast majority of the work that we do. 80% of the projects that we do are schools. And we've done a lot of these MSBA projects. We've done 15 MSBA projects where the funding comes from the state. So we're pretty familiar with that. And then it's also, we're actually pretty familiar with this team and with the city of Gloucester. WT Rich Company was very proud to be the construction manager for the West Parish School. So we really kind of understand this process of working with the city. And I think my understanding is the city's very pleased with their school at West Parish. So we also have some relationships with many of the people that were involved at West Parish, and we've worked with this architect several times and also with this OPM CBRE. So that's good. We've got a good solid team for working together. So now I'm going to get a little bit into the schedule, and this is just kind of an aerial view oversight of the existing configuration from above. And so here you can see the initial setup. So this is really, we're going to really start to mobilize late July or early August. Our official date right now is August 1st. So what we'll be doing early is really just setting up the site. You can see the limits of the site fence. You can see there's a small parking area along the street in Webster that we're going to keep available for the residents for the initial phases as long as we can. You can kind of see some places where we're going to set up our construction trailers and, you know, the entrance where we're going to come into the site and then allow construction traffic to go all the way around the site and exit out. And I'll say this several times, but we're going to have a very strict priority and communication with our subs that there's no driving, coming out of the site and turning right onto Webster Street is not allowed. All traffic is going to exit to the left and immediately get on so they can head on to 128, which is probably what they would opt to do regardless for the quickest route. But in this early phase, sorry, Bryce, just go back one. In this early phase, you see the red, that's kind of symbolizing the building that's going to be abated and demolished. So that's going to be the focus here. Now on the next slide, once the building is down, we kind of reconfigure the site because the building is further to the west on this site. So we start to build in some access roads for the construction traffic going around, and we reconfigure the gate. And really what we're doing is modeling the permanent road configuration for the new design. So we're going to follow that as soon as we can. There's something we'll be doing in here called ground improvements. So you see that tall yellow piece of equipment in the middle. The soil here in Gloucester has a lot of clay content, soft clay content. So it has to be improved with a technique they call these geo-piers, which are concrete piers. And that's one of the things you might notice early. It goes pretty quick. It only lasts probably about 2 weeks. And they're going to put in several hundred of those geo-piers. They're going quite quickly, actually. But you might notice that big piece of equipment very early in the process. Then we're going to go right from there into the foundations. And then we'll go, that'll take us into sort of January. Then from there, we'll really carry on. And the building's very much steady state for the site configuration, meaning there's not a lot of changes. Like once we get into our rhythm for how people come in and off the site, that pretty much stays the same. So that's the focus there. And really, you'll see for the next, January through June, we'll be working on the main structure. And then on the next slide, you can see, once we get into sort of next spring and summer, there'll be activity on the outside, but a lot of the work will be on the interior at that point. And really, that's our target completion date, June 2023, when we're getting a certificate of occupancy, opening up the school. We'll transition it. That gives a nice, healthy time for the owner to set up their furniture and equipment and their IT systems, get everyone settled. And they also want it to be ready to go so that when teachers want to move in August, the classrooms are available to them. So I'm going to pass it on to Brian Parody now, and he's going to talk about safety and logistics.
Thanks, Sean. So I'm going to run through the next slide: safety, site traffic plan, site logistics, and construction mitigation. But first of all, safety at our company is the #1 priority, not only for the workers on site, but everyone that's involved, or impacted by the construction. So we have a robust safety program. We do have project-specific safety plans developed that I don't want to dive too deep into, but it's an important note that all planning, coordination, and communication on the upcoming slides is done with the safety in mind. And we're going to coordinate with the local authorities periodically throughout pre-construction and construction to make sure that everything is planned effectively with their involvement. So as we go through, we'll try to highlight some of those things that are important to the community and the neighborhood. So this is the traffic plan, really straightforward. Really just want to bring everything in through 128 and right onto Eastern Ave and right in onto Webster. And then we'll utilize our site access loop around to exit the exact same way outside the construction site. Again, the real focus here is no construction traffic is allowed in the nearby residential streets. And we're really just trying to limit all the impact to where this blue line is shown on the screen. So very straightforward. And once we're good on our site, this is kind of how we're set up. This is the demo and abatement phase that John was talking about from August 2021 through October 2021. This phase, we're kind of utilizing the existing pavement for that for the perimeter access loop. We're trying throughout construction. Our goal is to we have plenty capacity for all phases to accommodate the on-site construction parking. In blues are lay down areas, so we got it's a nice site. We got plenty of space to operate and utilize for storage and lay down. In this phase, we'll be demolishing the existing temp drainage and kind of setting up our perimeter erosion controls, which will live throughout both phases, and that kind of sets us up for controlling any storm drainage. We're utilizing the existing fire hydrants during this phase for demolition and then all our other water and emergency needs. Pedestrian traffic routing. What we want to do is really try to, eventually we're going to take over this whole sidewalk anyway to do a lot of these improvements. We do want to direct traffic, and we'll work with the police department to set this up, but to direct traffic across the street. That way, when trucks are coming out the gates, pedestrians are directed with signage to the opposite side of the street so that they can safely pass. And another thing to note, there will be some tight areas that we'll be reviewing with the police department just right outside these entrances in case there's any wide turns. So we'll be looking into that. And again, as John noted, we do want to keep this area of parking open to the public as long as we possibly can. So just kind of rolling right into that kind of second site configuration. The building's down. Now we're working in the area of the new building. So we have the new access loop like John was talking about, basically following the configuration of the new paving. We have plenty of space. We'll do a grade raise right here, and I'm not sure if John mentioned that, but that's kind of one of those major activities that we'll try to get completed right off the bat. A little bit of a grade raise here and a grade raise on the right side for the new parking lot. So that'll be a little bit of import, and that'll be a sizable activity to note when that's ongoing at the beginning of the project. But that's a good thing to get out of the way right off the bat. But that'll provide plenty of on-site parking for our construction workers, and that way there's no need to use any other spaces in the area. again, additional opportunities for lay down stockpiling, temp drainage setup is set up. You can kind of see it in the tan. Fire hydrants and connections. We'll be getting our, as John noted, we'll be getting our utilities in early on. So there'll be a new fire loop around the site. So we'll be utilizing the existing hydrants and new fire department connections for the fire department throughout construction. Pedestrian traffic pretty much remains the same. And again, we'll try to leave this area as open as long as we can. I'm thinking at least, through the winter, and then there'll be kind of major site activities going on, and we'll be doing, starting with some of our more heavy utility work and starting our early site finishes. So, but we'll try to hold on and leave this parking area outside of the fence as long as we possibly can while maintaining schedule. And just a few other items, just wanted to note, this is part of our construction management plan that we've shared with the town. Just a few things that we really look to mitigate throughout construction. We're very sensitive to noises outside the designated construction periods. So we're very, we want to monitor and control that with our work. Dust control throughout the project. So in demolition, that's why we need the hydrants. We water the debris to keep the dust down, and then throughout construction there'll be a dust a truck with a water truck watering the site to keep the dust down, and that really helps dust not getting to the air and migrating. We do have stabilized construction entrances at each entrance of the site, and that does help keep some of the mud off the streets. But each contractor is kind of responsible for managing that. But we also do have periodic street cleaning that will ensure that we're keeping the streets clean in case any dust or anything travels onto the road. That's something we take very seriously, and that's something that we coordinate with with the town, DPW, and Concom. Traffic management and parking control. Again, we talked about that in accommodating all the parking on site. Pre-construction photo surveys. This is something that we offer to the nearby residents, just so we can, kind of document, what the conditions are, in the area, and, make sure that we're keeping them that way. So that's something that, you may hear from the town about that. Oops. And then the last item there, vibration management. We do have, for the early phases of construction, there'll be some heavy activities. We do have vibration monitoring in place, and that's on the perimeter of our job site. And that's to make sure that we work within the thresholds that is designated by the, in coordination, the engineers kind of designate this certain threshold that we need to stay under to make sure that it doesn't impact the areas around us. And that's what that's for. It's basically remote monitors that if we exceed a certain level, it'll send us an alarm, and then we'll have to stop our work and figure out a different way to go about it. So that's what that's all about. And then I think neighborhood communication. John, you want to go through that?
Yep. So really the communication with the neighborhood, this meeting kind of kicks off that formal communication, but it's really important that there's that people who are affected by the construction, abutters or other people in the local community, that we keep you informed about what's happening and when. But we also want that communication to be two-way communication, meaning we want there to be means, if you have a question, if you have a concern, that you have a way of voicing that. Think like a resident. That's a motto we have. We'll have some signs we put up around our own job site internally inside the fence. Think like a resident. There's a few bullet points underneath that really remind people that we need to be sensitive to our neighbors. But we will do some more community meetings like this. We'll kind of decide as a group and what makes sense. Once we get into construction, we will have, for those who want to be on a distribution list, we'll have some email notifications when something of any sort of substance is happening. We'll send it out to that distribution list. The on-site owner's representative, as he introduced himself, Dennis Basidi from CBRE, He's available on site during construction hours. Although we do not encourage you just to walk onto the site. You may need to call him or email him if you want to talk to him. His email address is there. And if you want to get on this distribution list, please email Dennis and just make a request to be on that distribution list. Dennis, I hope you don't get overwhelmed with requests too quickly.
No, that's fine, John. You know, we're here to help. So
yeah,
whatever we can do, open
So,
book here.
Yeah, appreciate that, Dennis. So it's good to have that email list for us. And but you can also use that email address if you have a question, anything about the project. Dennis, he's the first point of contact for that. Dennis is on site. He'll talk to our team. Whatever it might be, if it's a question, it's a concern, whatever, that's the best way to get in touch with us. And our firm also maintains a 24/7 call-in number. That's our main office number. There's an option to, during off hours, if it's an emergency, you can press a certain option. It's not set up for Gloucester yet when you get through there, if you ever use it. If anyone wanted to test it out, they ask you which project you're calling about. So Gloucester's not quite set up in that yet, but it will be before August 1st, before we mobilize. But that's really the kind of the communication. We really do want to be in touch, and we do want to be able to communicate with you what's going on. I mean, just for example, there's a few operations like pouring concrete slabs, which will go past the typical time of 3:30 in the afternoon, and we'll tell people when those are coming. It only happens 2 or 3 times throughout the whole project where those are extended times, but things like that, we want to let people know. We didn't have the work hours up here, but the work hour is going to be 7 a.m. to 3:30. We're very, Brian was talking about noise control. We're very clear with our contractors. They're not allowed to come and show up outside our gate at 6 o'clock in the morning with their big truck idling. That's something we'll enforce very strongly. So I think next slide is Q&A, right, Bri? So we are available. I think Ben or someone, do you want to MC the Q&A? But obviously you could ask design questions, which the design team can answer. But if it's anything about the construction, then Brian and my team will answer those the best we can.
Thank you, John, and your team, and Brian. So what I want to before we get a question and answer, I just want to show the audience our project site. So Brian, if you could stop sharing, I'm going to share for a moment here, just for a quick moment. Got a great project site which we're updating regularly. Can people see that? Great. So you'll see there are quite a bit of information on this site. It's been revamped over the last few months. You see, we have typically have a summary of recent meetings. I likely have a summary of this meeting up shortly. And then there's upcoming events. So you can see there's a link to our event tonight here. There's some recent news. There are recent meeting recordings. This is very important. You can sign up here to receive email updates that John was talking about. That's an important way to sign up if you want our periodic updates via email. And then also you see up here, we have meetings update section, which tells you about recent meetings. It also has links to minutes and agendas and packets and presentations from previous meetings. We have an about section here, which has backgrounds and timelines. And then we have key documents as well. The most important is the homepage, is that where I started, and that's where you'll be getting the latest news and also links to upcoming meetings or recent, reports of recent meetings. I just want to make sure. And then, as I said before, really important, if you'd like to get periodic updates via email, you can sign up right here. If you just scroll down a little bit on the right-hand side, there are videos. There'll be more and more photos as we get into construction. But that's just very useful information and a great way to stay informed. We'll also put the CBRE Hearies contact information and the 24-hour hotline as well, in case you've got questions. So we're going to go to questions now. Folks can use the raise hand function, which you should see right on your screen there. And I will call on someone, and then Maria, do you elevate them, or do I allow to talk, or how do we do this?
I can do it.
Okay, great. So the first one I see on the list here is Karen. We'll elevate you to a panelist, and then if you unmute, then you can ask your question.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so you've talked about the construction traffic and all of your plans seem very documented. What you haven't mentioned and what's one of the main concerns of the folks in the neighborhood is the real traffic and why there doesn't seem to be any acknowledgement of the previous traffic reports that existed. The folks in the neighborhood are extremely worried about the inevitable traffic flow since there is already a backlog in the traffic flow with the current school. It's going to backlog onto Eastern Ave, clearly Webster Street, and it's going to prevent everybody up on Portuguese Hill from being able to access their homes. So what's your plan for that?
Great. Thank you, Karen, for asking the question. Of course, we can't cover every single thing in a presentation, otherwise we'd go on for hours. But so let's bring up some slides on that, a couple of slides, and I can explain that to folks because it's going to be a significant improvement and much better organized than it is currently. Brian, if you could bring up the presentation and just if we show the bird's eye view, that'll help folks. That'll help me just sort of answer the question from Karen. So while Brian's doing that, what I'll describe is typically what we see in modern school buildings, ones that have been built in the last 10 or 15 years, is a much better approach to arrival and dismissal. The buildings we have now, whether that's East Gloucester or Veterans, were built in the 1950s when cars were much smaller and traffic wasn't as much, and not really built for the modern cars and modern traffic we have today. So because of that, and because of good planning and things we learned at West Parish and things we've learned in school construction, what the attempt here is, you'll see some very significant changes. First of all, you'll see that there's parking that's available to all staff members plus visitors as well. These days, as you know, there's I think only one visitor spot at Veterans, and that forces visitors to park in the street, taking parking spaces from neighbors and residents. Okay, that won't be the case at the new school because we'll have sufficient parking not only during the school day, but also for school events. So after school or evenings, because what can happen at night for night events is all this whole loop here can all be used for parking as well. So you have all the hundreds of spots that are in the parking lot, plus fully around the building as well. So that's just in terms of impact of parking will be much better. The other piece that'll be important is what we call the queuing. Right now, only a few cars can sort of squeeze into the Veterans parking lot, and that causes backups and blockage on Webster Street right now. Because of modern approaches to queuing and arrival and dismissal, in the morning, the queue will go around this, all the way around this loop here, okay? And in the morning, as folks know, the drop off, the arrival happens over a period of time, about 25 minutes or so, with people coming in at different times. Some kids are coming in for breakfast. Some kids are coming in just as school starts. Staff come in quite a bit earlier. So there isn't as much of a rush in the morning as there could be. The other real strong advantage of having a school here, as folks know, is many kids will walk, and that'll reduce the number of students as well. But that ability to load cars into this loop in the morning will keep cars off of the streets. In the afternoon, which is where more cars come all at once, we extend the loop all the way beyond the playground area and through the back here, and then into the onto the with the pickup here. These are where kids are dropped off and picked up. The advantage, so at that point, there are 90 cars that can be on site at once, okay? And then kids are getting in and getting out of as many as 10 cars at once. That is something we do at West Parish. It's well organized, it's timed. So you're not dropping one kid off of at a time, but as many as 10 kids or 10 cars or once are all picking up and dropping off all at the same time. That makes that queue move much more quickly than simply taking, one car, looking at one car, how long does it take a child to get in or out, and multiplying it by the cars we expect. But that ability to queue and move 10 cars at a time makes it able to move that line very, very quickly. Some of the other improvements that we're looking at to make traffic move more smoothly is the bus loop here. As you know, if you live in the neighborhood, when the buses come at this point, they block one full lane of traffic on Webster Street, making it a one-way road, backing up traffic. In a modern school, you try to have deliveries, bus traffic, and car traffic all separate, and that's what this building will do. So the buses will not be blocking Webster Street as they do now. You won't have buses, going into reverse, which is unsafe, and backing into the parking lot like they do now, blocking traffic, blocking pedestrians, and blocking school cars. So this will be a big help. We can fit all the buses we'll need in this loop at once, so they don't have to back up onto Webster Street at all. We're also looking and requesting from the city adding a lane that's onto school property, a turning lane, turning into here as well. And that'll allow any cars that may still be on Webster Street to allow other cars and the two full lanes to exist on Webster Street as well. We'll have improved signage, we'll have improved crosswalks. So that's a very, very big difference in what's there today. I will say this, that, if you live in the neighborhood, you know that there are pinch points on school traffic for about 20 minutes in the morning and about the same amount in the afternoon. That happens at most schools, but we're very confident that this will be a dramatically different experience than it is today, where cars can easily block off Webster Street. Cars often or can block neighbors' driveways. We want to end all of that, and I've tried to explain a number of the aspects which will improve that quite a bit. So happy to answer more questions on that if there are. Let's move to Barry Pett, Councilor Barry Pett. Good to see you, Mr. Councilor, and you're next in the queue here to answer the question. Ask a question, sorry. Yeah, Barry? Councilor Pett, are you there? If you unmute yourself, then you can speak.
Yes, good evening. Thank you, Ben. I don't have a specific question, but I'd like to request a couple of things. Number one, when people do ask to speak, if you would ask them to identify themselves. In other words, not just like a first name, a full name and an address, so that in case we want at future dates to be able to get in touch with them, we can do that. And then second of all, if you could give us an update as to how many people are on the call. I know initially you said that we had about 15. I assume it's a much larger number at this point, but if you could just let us know how many people there are. And thank you for this presentation this evening. It's very detailed.
Great, thank you, Councilor Pett. And we will, as we have already, we'll continue to look for you to help us connect with the neighborhood outreach. And thank you for your help so far. That is a good reminder about asking people to identify themselves and where they live, so we can follow up with them. And also, wait, you had a second question too. Can someone remind me what his second request was?
How many people are on the call?
Yeah, there are now 32 attendees in addition to the panelists. So there are 14 panelists, there are 32 attendees, so a total of 46 folks on the call right now. All right, so the next one is Ben Blanchard. If you could, we'll unmute you. We'll move you to a panelist, and if you unmute, you can speak.
Hi.
Tell us, you introduce yourself, Ben, Mr. Blanchard, and where you live.
Sure. Hi, I'm Ben Blanchard. I live at 14 Webster. I live in the little house that could right across the street. I have a 123-year-old home that has a fieldstone foundation. I'm concerned about the pounding, those kind of things. I have several questions. I'm just going to present them first, then you can answer them as you like. One of them, the second one is I went to a meeting that was offered last Friday morning, and they had said they were going to put a tape up on the light posts to show where the height of the proposed school is going. So I believe that was 53 feet and 46 feet. Do you know if that's been put up? I see it. I see a tape there now. I'm not sure if that's the one. Or do you even know what I'm talking about?
So I'm going to ask Michelle. So the answer is yes, the tape has been put up. Michelle, can you explain the height of the building and what that's showing?
I can, but Brad, do you want
Sure.
to handle that? He was
So
in charge of that.
I can take that question. I was out there when I met Ben the other day. So if you look at the light pole, Ben, right, that is behind the first baseline, right?
Yes.
You'll see on the bottom of that pole a piece of blue tape. And that piece of blue tape represents the kind of the finish grade of the first floor, elevation 48. Right.
Okay.
So that's kind of where we're going to build the site up to across the board to that height. Then if you go up from there, right, the boom truck that the city has only goes up to 45 feet. But if it take that and add 45 feet to that, right, you'll see now out on the light pole, there are two pieces of black tape.
Yes.
The uppermost piece of black tape is the 45-foot limit. And if you can just visualize 1 foot above that, that would be 45 plus 1, 46 feet, which represents, right, the vast majority, about 70% of the building, the 46-foot height. So the classroom wings, right, that we discussed, those are all 46 feet. There's a very small portion, right, but which is the highest portion of the building, which is 54 feet, and it actually represents about 0.6% of the overall building in terms of kind of the roof area. And that area, as we discussed, is right at the front entry. And when you look at those renderings, you can see that as the high point of the building.
Right. Thank you. So the current tape, the black tape, measures the 45-foot height.
Yeah,
It measures, that's the distance that the boom truck could go up. On the front pole, okay, behind first base, assume that the building height would be 1 foot higher than that. And then out in right field, right, if you look at the same two pieces of tape, the uppermost piece of tape, again, because we're limited by the distance the boom truck can go up, it's 3 feet higher than that one. So 1 foot higher on the pole behind first base, and 3 feet higher than the black tape on the right field.
Okay, thank you.
And
So
then
yeah,
about the foundations. Sorry, Mr. Blanchard, about the foundations.
Yes.
Jonathan, Rich, or someone from your team could, or maybe CBR Heary, could you talk about the efforts we're making with folks in the neighborhood around that, and if pounding or excavating will be an issue actually?
Yeah, sure. It's a great question, and we can appreciate your concern. You know, with an old building, you have to take care of it, and you know, how is this going to be impacted? So we have a company that'll be doing pre-existing surveys. So you can opt for just an exterior or an exterior and an interior survey of your home. So those will document the existing conditions. Were anything to happen, which is not very likely, but then that would be documented, so that could be covered. In addition to that, we'll have the on-site monitoring, as John mentioned before. That'll measure the vibrations that are happening on site, sending off an alarm if anything were to occur, you know, that would raise it above a certain limit. So those are the methods that are in place to mitigate those issues and make sure that there aren't any structural issues or problems that would be affected on your building.
Thanks, Brian. So on the table right now, this whole project cannot go forward unless the community grants the variance. Is that correct?
Well, there's a permitting process in a couple of areas, and that's one of the permits that. And so, can someone just describe how that process goes forward?
So I can just address that a little bit. So tomorrow night, Ben, I invite you to attend one of the planning and development meetings where we're actually doing the questions that you asked, as well as other people asked out on the site. We've compiled all of those questions and we'll be addressing those tomorrow night at the P&D meeting. It's not a variance, so I want to be very clear about that. It's a special permit, which can be granted by City Council. So that's what we're asking for the height piece of that.
Okay,
And
thanks.
it's part, you're welcome. And it's part of the process that we go through as part of this project.
I see. So it would be a special permit because the current
Correct.
zoning is only 35 feet.
So yeah, so there's a little bit of confusion. So the current zoning for our side of the street, for your side of the street, it's different. Our side of the street, it's R20, it's 30 feet, but then there's two ways to get the special permit. And under the 3.1.6B, which is what we're going for, is special permit by City Council approval. So that's the technicality that we're asking for there.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, so as a community member and it's a congested area, basically on the height of that building is going to erase all of the green space behind it. So basically you'll be driving up the street and you're going to see this huge structure. So basically it's going to block all of the view in the green and the green area and the open space. First of all, the building itself it's really beautiful, and it's exciting. The inside of it, the design, it's really conducive to learning and all that kind of stuff, and I'm for all that. I am not excited about the scale. The scale of the building is massive. It looks like a community college, which is great if that's what it is, but it's not. But I just think it's taking a community green space educational thing and it's making it it's just taken away all the charm, and it's just going to look like a community college, and it's already congested area. So my concern is the scale and the height. It's massive and it's overscaled, you know, and I studied architecture. A lot of the things about architecture is it in scale to the neighborhood? Is it in scale to the things around it? I notice on your renderings, a lot of the surrounding areas in those renderings, they picture high rises and different buildings. I think it's fascinating. This is a community with houses, and that's my big concern about the height construction. And my last concern is really about parking. All my neighbors, I have a driveway and I use it, and I have guests, and but a lot of people don't. All these triple deckers and double deckers all around me, they don't have driveways at all. What is going on with the street parking? Is there talk, because the streets are super narrow, and I can't imagine these big construction trucks coming in when we go down at the foot of the hill. Already just with regular cars, it's hard to take a left, or it's difficult. But what about the street parking? Is that going to be are they going to take that away from us?
So I want to talk about two things. Ben, I really appreciate your perspective. So first, we're have a lot of those discussions about the height tomorrow night. So okay, if we could just push that to tomorrow night, I'd be happy to answer all of those pieces for you tomorrow. And then the second is that the parking, I think as Brian has showed you, those 10 spaces that are available to you on Webster Street, we are preserving those for as long as we possibly can throughout the construction process. And then once we take them and then turn them back, there will be 6 spaces there. And even though technically as they are today, they are part of the school property, they remain part of the school property, but they will be available to residents as they are in use today. So those same spaces are there for that. And we also understand that the neighborhood uses that school parking for snow emergency. And again, we've spoken to DPW, and we know and understand that that's still going to be part of the process that you will have available to you during snow emergencies, to use that school site for that purpose. And hopefully, we're getting cars off the street. That's our goal here. And that's why, we've had 120 parking spaces as part of this plan, is to get cars off the street, and no parking on the street by teachers or staff or visitors.
Thank you. But just my final concern is, does anybody know if they're trying to take the parking away on the street so that because it would improve traffic flow. But we, as a community, we need these parking spaces out in front of our homes.
Yeah.
So I think that what you're referring to is when I made a suggestion that we remove parking from the crosswalk down to the end of the street. And I believe right now that there's only 1 or 2 cars that park in that area. It's not part of the upper part of the street. All of that would still remain on-street parking.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Blanchard. Appreciate your questions and your input. Next would be Tracy O'Neill. Tracy, if you could say your full name, if that is it, and then also where you live, please.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Hi, my name's Tracy O'Neill. I live at 12 Friend Street. So I live on, if you come up from Prospect Street, I'm the 4th house on the left at the top of the first hill, and I'm on a corner. So cars come down the hill and drive right up over my sidewalk every single day, all day long. So I'm concerned about the construction vehicles. So that's not my question. I have about 6 questions. The parking spaces on Webster Street, you said there's about 10 there at the top of the hill, correct?
Yeah, and that little
Okay.
pull out, the small parking lot, that'll pull out, that spot right there.
Right. So when I was there last week with the school committee doing a site visit, I was told that they weren't going to touch the hill.
Do you mean the parking on the hill? It's one of.
They weren't going to, that the construction area would go to the base of the hill, and the hill would not be touched.
Do you mean the wooded hill?
I'm talking about the hill that goes to Webster Street, from Webster Street to the baseball field. So I'm talking about those cars that park at the top of the softball field hill.
Right.
So I was told by school committee members who were there last week on the site, I asked them about how high the building would be and how much fill there would be. And are you going to put a retaining wall at the hill? And they said, oh, we're not even going to go, we're not touching the hill. But now you're saying that you're going to be, now you're saying you've got a fence going and it's going to go around those parking spaces for as long as possible, but then you're going to take those spaces and do something, I don't know, grade them, and then give back 6. Is that right? Am I understanding you correctly?
I think so. If someone can chime in here, the fences we were showing were during construction only.
Right, and then you said right, so you actually did the fence around those parking spaces, and then you said, and then we're gonna take them. And then you're gonna take those 10 spaces, and then you're gonna give back 6. So why are you touching those spaces that are at the top of the hill if you're not touching the hill?
Can someone answer the question about?
I can try, Tracy. I think we were there with you on site, and we recorded all of your questions. And again, we'll be addressing all of those questions, both from you as well as those that came on Friday. We'll be addressing those tomorrow night. Briefly, I don't remember the question being posed that way. The hill has regrading, and I think we spoke about that. We're regrading the hill, and we're doing that kind of work. And we are changing those parking spaces from 10 to 6 and reorientating them. But we are addressing all of the questions that were asked on the site tomorrow. And I don't remember it being asked exactly that way. But
Well,
you're welcome to send Val an updated question if you have that.
Well, as long as I have you here, I did ask how much fill would be
Oh, yes, you did.
used for
Absolutely.
grading, and it
Yes,
was
you-
4 feet, basically. Some places would be higher, some places would, where we were standing, I was told, right here where we're standing, we're gonna add 4 feet. And they said right down there where there's a drain, that's lower. So obviously, in order to bring that lower part of the field or property up to grade, it would be more than 4 feet, which makes sense. And I said, well, are you going to put a retaining wall at the hill? And they said, oh, no, we're not even going to touch the hill. And if those are not the exact words, they're very close to it.
So Tracy, I was there also. And if you look at, as I was mentioning to Ben,
Okay,
right?
who's talking? I don't even know who's, I'm sorry. I'm trying to figure out.
Brad, just say who you
Brad,
are, Brad.
Brad Dorr with the design team, right?
Okay.
I was with you when we were out on site.
Yep.
And you're correct in that, right? You said that there are going to be different levels of fill depending upon what the existing grade is. And it depends because, for example, the 2 light poles that we've been talking about, right? The base of those light poles are at different elevations, right? You remember when we were talking about that?
Yep.
Okay, so if you look at, right, the light pole, as I was saying to Ben, behind first base, behind the first base line.
Yeah, I heard all that. I
So
heard
that-
everything that was said tonight.
So that's at elevation 48, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to be filling that to that point, right, to create kind of the flat area that we're going to be, right, putting in the parking lots and, you know, the building and all of that. And then that will get feathered into the slope, right, that is along Webster Street.
So you are going to grade the hill.
Well, we're going to fill it up to that level as we discussed.
Okay,
Right.
but those parking spaces are not, I mean, if it's only going to be 4, 5, 6 feet that you're going to add fill, that hill is higher than 6 feet high. So how much fill do you need to bring that field up to street level?
We're not
In
going
order to include those parking spaces in your plan.
we're not going to be bringing it all the way up to the Webster Street
If
level.
you're not doing that, then why are you taking those parking spaces?
Okay, so can I ask a question just about like, how come we're going from 10 to 6? Is it a modification of the size of the spots? Is it a?
No. It's a matter of you.
No,
I can kind of show it on the plan if you want me to pull up the
It's-
slide real quick.
Yeah, it's, all right, show the
It's
plan.
basically planting
Tracy, I
and
have
then,
a plan to
sidewalk
show you
improvements.
tomorrow night that addresses all of the questions that you asked on site. And I think that if you can postpone this question until tomorrow night, it will make it more clear to you.
No, I just can, there's a reason that we need to use some of that space. Could someone explain the reason we need to
No,
use?
so that's not the correct slide. Keep
Sorry.
looking.
Let me just go to that slide again.
So I think the
showed
reason
the-
is
it
there's a
showed-
new sidewalk going in that area. There's not a side, I don't think
Right.
there's the same layout right now. So they're putting a new
Basically
sidewalk.
plantings and sidewalk, and then that's the pullover lane right
And
there.
then they're doing parallel spots instead of
All right.
perpendicular
Okay,
spots,
so-
but they're at pretty much the same grade, the
Okay,
same
so-
elevation.
What is at the same grade?
They're at the same height.
Right.
The new
the
spaces,
park- it's-
yeah.
Everything's at the same height as the cars that are parked on Webster Street?
No, just,
Slopes down going into the site a little bit here.
yeah, they're at the same height they are now. The parking lot's not moving because we're adding a sidewalk there. That's going to impact the number of spots there, but there still will be a hill down to the site.
Okay, so what does that blue line represent on this diagram?
That's our fence. We're trying to keep, those
Okay.
spots outside of our construction fence as long as possible so that you can use them. And then when we need to do the sidewalks, the curb, and the the plantings and all that stuff. We'll
Okay,
take
all right,
over
so
that
those
area,
little,
address that
those,
effectively at the end.
those little circles on the left, what are those?
These little circles or the plantings? These are plantings. in
On the
black.
left, are they plantings?
These are all plantings, I believe.
Okay, all right. So, all right, so thank you for that. That's one question. I think somebody else asked that, so hold on one second. Is there a fence between the school and 128? And are there trees between 128 and the school? And are they the old trees that are there now? Or are you gonna knock those down and plant saplings?
They are the existing trees, and the existing fence between 128 and the property will remain.
Okay, both fences, because there's two fences.
Right. We're
So
really not,
bo-
we're really not, one of those fences isn't even the city's, I believe it's actually part of 128. So we're not planning
Right.
on touching those.
So both fences will remain?
That's the current plan.
Okay, let me see. And how many cars can fit in the queue at one time?
They're two different in the morning. Michelle, remind me, is that 60? And
I believe it's 60 in the morning and 90 in the afternoon, but I'd have to go back to our previous presentations to verify that. So
Okay,
please don't quote me on that.
I can verify it while we're talking and announce it in a little bit.
okay. And you said that you're in close contact with city offices, not officers, but offices like the police department and the fire department and all that?
And whenever someone's building a project of this size, especially a school building, the project team works closely with the Department of Public Works, the fire and safety and police. I don't know, Jonathan,
Okay.
Brian, you can talk about other departments if you like, but
No, that's okay. I'm
Okay.
just wondering if you have talked with Bob Ryan, the traffic commissioner for the city of Gloucester. Have you worked closely with him?
We have presented the traffic commission at least once, I can't remember now. And they have the plans, they've seen they've reviewed the traffic and engineering study. They've seen a presentation on arrival and dismissal. And they have not further contacted us to present again to them. I think.
Okay,
Brian, is that Brian or Michelle? Michelle, is that accurate? What I just said? Just to double check.
We have not heard any further information from the traffic commission.
That's right.
okay, so if there's 440 students, right, about 60% of those students are driven to school, which equals 264 cars. So in the morning, only 60.
I'm sorry. Tracy, remember, more than one kid goes in a car. So you can't just take the number of students and take 60%.
All right, so, okay, so let's say in 60% is 264. Let's say 164 or let's say between 164 and 200 kids. So let's say like 180 cars
Well,
are gonna be in the area.
Those are your numbers. We have in our traffic study, from the traffic engineers, different
So
numbers.
is that from the traffic commissioner of the city of Gloucester? Or is that from someone else?
That is from,
You're a guy that you paid.
that is from experienced traffic engineer.
And who's that?
Is all, Michelle, can you answer?
Niche Engineering is our traffic engineer.
Niche,
City of-
N-I-C-H?
Niche Engineering is our
NIC
traffic engineer.
N-I-C-H?
N-I-S-C-H.
Okay.
I-S-T-C-H. Right.
N-I-S-T-C-H engineering, but that's
So
not
The
from the
traffic
city,
report is on the website if you'd like to view it.
right? But that's
and-
that's not from the traffic commissioner of the city of Gloucester. Is that correct?
Traffic commissioner of the city of Gloucester does not do traffic studies.
He doesn't.
No.
No,
Really?
they're not. Really.
Huh. All right, well, I'll have to talk to him about that. All right, I think that's about it.
Okay.
Thank you very much for answering all my questions. I really appreciate it.
Well, Tracy, thank you for being here tonight. And also thank you for your questions. They're very helpful to hear. Really appreciate your time. A couple more folks, and then we'll probably call it quits tonight as we're moving on an hour and a half. So Rich, you're next. If you could introduce yourself and let us know where you live, and then go ahead with your question. If you go ahead, Rich, we should be able to hear you. Rich, if you're speaking, we cannot hear you. You're unmuted. I don't know what's happening here. Okay. Rich, can you speak? It may help if you log back out and log back in, perhaps. That sometimes on occasion works. It could be a microphone problem with your computer. Why don't we put you aside for the moment, and then we'll ask the next person to speak. Marianne Boucher, if you unmute, you can introduce yourself.
Hi,
And ask your question. Good to see you, Marianne.
thank you. Marianne Albert Boucher, 93 Mount Pleasant Avenue, and a Ward 1 resident. With all due respect, after listening to Tracy O'Neill, I have here a photo of the traffic update presented by Michelle from Durham Whittier. It states 89% increase in student, estimated 89 increase in pickup and drop off. Morning, 8:15 to 9 o'clock, 161 will drop off students, plus or minus 56 cars from 8:30 to 8:45, plus or minus 70 cars from 8:45 to 9. Afternoon, 2:30 to 3:15, 149 pickup students, plus or minus 71 cars from 2:45 until 3 p.m. That comes directly from Dorr and Whittier. The traffic study, I attended both meetings. One was on January 21st. The second one was on February 18th. Mr. Ryan asked for Michelle from Dorr and Whittier and Brad to please bring information back in regards to when the YMCA and the 200 units open up, because he wanted to see what the traffic would be like. From my understanding, Mr. Ryan can no longer speak to anyone in regards to this. Also, I would like to ask, the tallest point of the school is 54 feet. What is the dimensions of that 54 feet? Is that 54 feet before the fill, or is it after the fill? If this is a special permit for over 30 feet, you're asking for over 24 feet of approval. So I really would like to know the number of feet of fill in that area of the 54 feet and the dimension of that 54-foot area. Thank you so much.
So maybe I can try and field that one. So again, right, we're going to, the amount of fill varies across the site. But when we talk about 54 feet, it's on top of that 48-foot elevation. So it includes all of that. So it's not additive, right? It's 54 feet basically from the first floor to the tip of the roof. The dimension of that area is 16 feet by 90 feet, right? And it's right at the front door and the lobby area and the little area that we call Main Street, which is kind of the public area of the building. And that represents approximately 0.6% of the overall kind of roof area, if you will, of the building, 0.6%, less than 1%. I think that answers all your questions, Marianne.
Okay, thank you, Brad. So we're gonna have two more folks. We'll have Olympia 57 speak, and then Rich, and then we'll close down tonight. And thank everyone for their time and questions. So Olympia, if you can introduce yourself.
Olympia Palazola, 57 Western Avenue, Gloucester, Mass. I'd like you to address the retention ponds, the bioretention ponds, and could you bring up the screen that you show them on so that we can see where they are? And I know that a lot of people don't have a clue what they are. The biggest one that looks like a smiley face at the far right side of the property. No one's ever seen whether this thing lays flat on the ground. Is it a raised up pond? It's quite large. And we're just trying to see how you do that. Do the cars drive up to it? Would like to know more information because I was told by a bioretention pond that they should never have these things on school property. The ones at West Parish, they have lifted up the covers and a kid could fall in and drown. So would you speak about the bioretention ponds, please, and let us know on a scale, is it flat to the ground, or is that big one that looks like a smiley face, is that brought up 6 feet, 8 feet? And those areas are not fenced. This is a school, it's not fenced. So how do you keep the public from going near these retention ponds, or anyone from getting hurt through one of these retention ponds? And could you show us again where they are on your plans?
While Brian is bringing up the slides, could someone explain what retention ponds are, why they're used, and the accessibility of people to them? I think folks are thinking these look actually like actual ponds. They may not be that. If someone could explain that, please, and explain the difference between that and what we would see as a natural landscape pond, because I don't think there's anything at all. Brad, Jonathan, someone?
Any other questions?
Yeah, so I can try and address that. So there's really two types of, and this all has to do with stormwater. So there's underground storage facilities that are exactly as I'm describing them. They're underground, so you would not see them. And there's one that's located towards the back of the building there, almost straight away in the middle in the back. And so that is underground and you won't see that. The area, I think, Olympia, that you're referring to as the smiley faced here is actually a detention area, right? Which is similar to West Parish. And the idea there is it's a typical stormwater management practice where the water will go in there and it's really, there's not standing water in there. The reason that it's set up like this is so that it's able to slow down the rate of flow. And I'm not a civil engineer, and a civil engineer could probably give you a more eloquent discussion, but that is really just set up and it's somewhat landscape. There's some stone that's in the bottom of it, but 99% of the year or thereabouts, you know, it's going to just look like a landscape area, just like West Parish, and there isn't standing water.
Will there be culvert covers on those areas? Are they going to have covers on those that you can look into them?
Typically what you have in there is you have an overflow drain, right? That would be in there that would have a cover on that. So if the water gets up to a certain level, it would overflow and go into the underground storage. But typically that doesn't occur.
So that is flat to the ground where the cars are parking.
So
go ahead,
I
Michelle.
can tell you the difference between the grading. So on your far right side, at the far right side of the smiley there, Brian, if you get that side, from that to the center of that D is a slope of less than 2 feet. And from the far left, it's a slope of less than 4 feet. So you have slopes greater than that around here on the site. This is just a place where the water flows from the surface into this area. Less than an inch of water sits in this area over, I think it's 48 hours. It could be a little bit longer, but it's like less than an inch. And it's at that those times when you have heavy rains that you would have this water flow and it would come in here. It would slow the rate of water like Brad was saying, so that it goes into the drains at a slower rate.
So can you lift those covers up?
So it's groundwater. It's going into the surface. And
That's not the question. Are there manhole cover type things that can be lifted so someone could fall in there? I don't care how much water is there.
If they are, they're no different than the kinds of manholes that you would have on the street. Those kinds of same covers
Yes,
that
it
would
is.
be located out there.
But there are children and there are people that can walk that property and lift those. Also, can I ask about, are there others on the other side of the property? I thought there was another set that was going to be on the left-hand side of the property as well. Has that been
So
taken
that
out?
one, no, that is underground. So I think you were confused. The last time we heard the conversation, I think people were confusing that. Those are underground storage, water storage areas, and they're located under the parking area. So they receive the water, they hold the water, and then they slow down the flow of the water going out into the drainage systems.
So there's no, I'm sorry, so there are no pits there that you can lift covers on the ones to the left as well?
No, they're underground. They're underneath the parking surface.
Underneath the parking surface, okay.
Yes.
All right, and as far as the queue going in and out, I'm gonna ask this question again. I don't think it was ever answered how you're gonna actually get all those cars off of both sides of that street. I think they still have problems at West Parish, so how do you expect all of them to fit in that queue?
So the queue is bigger than what's at West Parish by about 30 cars. So that's an improvement. That's, you know, and so that's the very important piece. And then also the cars will have at least 10 available spots for folks to be dropping, you know, letting kids out or picking kids up at once. It's hard to sort of envision until you see it, but it's sort of, and it's well staffed by our principals and other staff members, and they are guiding parents on what to do, and parents learn how to operate within those. It's quite well organized, and it'll go quite smoothly when we're up and running, and after it takes a little time for parents to understand how actually to do it well. But it's much more capacity, almost 50% more capacity than they have at West Parish, and light years ahead of what they have currently right now at Veterans and East Gloucester.
And I'd just like to add something about the queuing. I think one thing that's important to understand is, you know, we talked about the number of cars that were, you know, would be coming for the students, but it's not that those cars all line up at once, because the students are getting in. So if you have 10 cars, as you're mentioning, Ben, where the students are climbing in, that takes a couple minutes for those students to go, and those cars are gone. So it's really about, it's about the flow all the way through.
Are you expecting 10 kids to get in a car?
No, 10 cars are opening their doors at once to let kids in or out.
Okay.
You don't do one car at a time. You do 10 cars at once.
We've lived on that street, and I'm going to tell you that the parents park all the way up to the drum corps in order not to get into a queue, and that blocks traffic as well. So that becomes a major problem that isn't addressed at all, because I don't know how you stop them. I mean, my sister-in-law got a handicap parking space just so it wouldn't happen in front of her house, and they still park in front of her house, even with the handicap.
Right.
How do you police that?
And that it's actually the way we police it is that we don't actually let kids who are walking go that route. But the other piece is they have to do that now on Webster Street, because there is no ability to actually, there's no queuing space. There's very little line there. Because there's no space on site, parents are forced to do the very inconvenient thing, which is, block the street, block driveways. By having a queue that's 90 cars long here and having it all on site and enough parking, we will eliminate the need for families to park on the street. They don't park on the street at West Parish, and they won't here. And we will remind, enforce, cajole, and make sure their kids are being released to the queue and not out to the street if they're getting picked up. The only kids who are released out to the street are those kids who we know walk home and have permission to walk home.
My husband's listening with me, and his name is Joseph Palazola, still 57 Western Avenue. He just wanted to make a comment.
Sure.
Listen, I grew up in that area.
At 11.
And I went to I was one of the first kids who went to the original Ward 2 school. But anyway, going to that, you know what you're doing? It's in the wrong spot. I've said this again. It's a huge building. Now you're going to tear down East Gloucester School. Why don't you put a single floor school over there, or even a 2-story? But they don't want it in the neighborhood. Now these streets were built probably in the early 1600s or 1700s. They're not made for this type of traffic. You've got traffic coming down from the shopping plaza, from the new housing that's up there, and from the YMCA. You guys all talk about, oh, it ain't gonna happen this way. Can I ask a question? How many of you people, either in Dore Whittier or Mr. Loomis yourself, live in Gloucester?
My wife and I bought a house in Gloucester. We need to work on the kitchen, and when that's done, we'll be living in Gloucester.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
Other members of the project team, as you heard, 50% of the project team from Jonathan Rich also live from WT Rich live in Gloucester as well. But remember, these are successful design and architectural and construction companies that have many, many employees, and they build and design and build schools and public buildings all over Massachusetts. So
listen,
they are very conscious of the neighborhoods that they build in, the families that they're impacting.
I don't think so.
And also
You're wrong. You're
wrong. Sorry, and also the communities that the buildings that they build will benefit.
Most of you people will be gone, and you'll leave this thing.
Neighborhood.
And you'll leave most of this disruption in that neighborhood, in the city. And guess what? It's all about the money. It's all about the money.
So thank you, Mr. Palazzo. Thank you for your comments tonight. We hear you. We understand that you're not happy with the location of the building. It's been through a long process that's been approved by the city council, by the school committee, by the building committee, and also by the voters as well. And so we're here tonight to make sure the neighbors understand and update on the construction as it goes forward, and also and how to get response, to get information as that goes forward. Rich, thank you for hanging in there. We'll allow you to talk, and let's hope that it works this time.
Ben, can I just add also to finish that comment though about traffic and everything? I mean, the school committee and the district are going to be doing a lot of work in terms of, trying to improve all sorts of safety issues regarding arrival and dismissal at all of our schools. So hopefully by the time this school opens, maybe we'll get less parents driving and more kids on the bus, or more kids walking with their parents and taking advantage of the health benefits of that. We are putting money into a school that is going to be energy efficient as much as we possibly can. We're investing, a lot of time and effort to make sure we're environmentally friendly, and it's environmentally friendly to put your kid on a bus. It's not so environmentally friendly to have every individual car drop their kid off. So we have a lot of messaging to do. And as a community, we also need the community to understand that 2 times a day, kids get dropped off, little kids get dropped off and picked up. And if it's an inconvenience for people to, avoid that area for 15 minutes, I think that's an inconvenience most people would tolerate and be happy to do to keep kids safe if we think it's impacting their safety. So we have a lot of messaging to do as a community that, traffic and flow around schools is all of our responsibility, not just the school itself.
Thank you, Kathy. That's a very good reminder about our efforts to reduce car traffic by having more and more kids walk, ride their bike, or especially take the bus. Thanks so much. Rich, you're the last part tonight. If you can unmute, I think you might be able to speak. You just hit the unmute button. Looks like we still aren't having any luck with Rich's technology. Does anybody want to from our? So we'll close down the.
And can I suggest if maybe, is there a way for Rich to participate in the chat function with this question?
We don't have a chat function.
No? Okay.
Rich, you're welcome to reach out to any of us, Kathy Clancy, one of the principals, myself, with your question. And we're happy to get back to you any way we can. Please, another way to reach out is to, is the number or the email address that we put on the site earlier. If someone wants to say that email address, you're welcome to. Sorry about the technical difficulties there. All right, so time to wrap up. Anybody on the team here want to say any closing remarks or closing message before I attempt? Okay, I'll attempt then. So thanks that we have at this point 23 members of the public still attending, which is great. So thank you for hanging in there with us and listening to the Q&A. As I hope you heard tonight, we're committed to answering folks' questions. We're committed to keeping you in the loop, especially the neighbors. We do understand that when there's a construction project of a new school building, that it will impact the neighborhood. And it will be a defined time, both during days and also across the construction period. But we will do our best, our whole team, to mitigate that impact, mitigate the noise, as we talked about, and other impacts, and also communicate with you as well and make sure that communication is two ways. Please go to the project website and sign up for our periodic updates. And then when we get into construction, please reach out if you have questions or concerns to the project team, and Jonathan, WT Rich will get back to you as soon as they possibly can. So really appreciate your interest, really want to continue to support the neighborhood on this project, and really looking forward to a much better school for a lot of our elementary students, both downtown and East Gloucester, and really helping the Gloucester Public Schools maintain really high quality that we have, and also make sure our buildings can support our students and our educators for decades to come. So thanks for your interest tonight, and please stay tuned as we move forward with the project. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night. Thanks for your help, everybody.